Well, in the first two segments today, we have actually covered why people get mad. And then we were in the second segment, we were trying to set the right tone. In the third segment now, we're going to have some ideas on how we avoid making things worse as a board member when nothing else seems to work. So without any further delay here, let's look at some of those reasons, okay?
Well, let's look at the first thing, that there are some laws actually that, while they're a little difficult to enforce, can be a cautionary tool in a meeting to make people feel like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
Laws? What kind of laws?
And these are state laws, actually.
State
laws. Actually called statutes.
Oh.
And I'll just read off what it says. It makes it a misdemeanor to engage in conduct which would cause harm, emotional distress, or apprehension of harm or stress, or creates a hostile environment. This applies to everybody in the room.
What do you mean by that?
It means that if you're the president of the association and you start intimidating somebody, you're violating the law. If you are a homeowner doing that, you're violating the law. If you're anybody in that meeting.
Well, does that apply to a manager?
Applies to the manager, anybody there.
Oh.
And the idea is that, you know, this can be something that if you've got homeowners who are a little excited and agitated, they can realize, well, I got to, you know, calm down a little bit here because I don't want to do something that's going to be against the law.
So is that the famous law I keep hearing about referred to as the bullying law?
It's intended to stop bullying, yes.
I think that was a pretty new law, wasn't it?
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
In
wow.
2013.
And so the state legislature actually passed that law?
They did, and another was passed previously to that quite some time ago, NRS 203, another state statute, which just makes it a misdemeanor to disturb any assembly or meeting.
Okay.
And again, it applies to everybody there. So again, this is a violation of the criminal law.
All right.
Now, it's pretty broad in its words, right?
So can you think we can enforce something like that?
In some cases.
Really?
It's difficult to enforce, but it's much better, really. You're not trying to get somebody arrested. You're trying to change their behavior. And the goal is to put them on notice that there are laws that address people's behavior in meetings, and these are two of them.
So we have to comply as well as they have to comply.
That's number one. If you're misbehaving, you can't exactly hold somebody else accountable for misbehaving.
So I don't want to threaten them?
I would not.
I don't want to intimidate them?
Nope.
Okay. And you don't do the same, right?
That's exactly right.
All right.
I'll be a good boy.
All right. Good.
So the next item, I'll let you address this one. How do board members behave in a meeting? I mean, not talking about bullying necessarily, but just what's the right way to behave?
Well, we've got to be really careful that we don't make things worse as a board member, you know? When we are addressing someone in a meeting, and we have to be sure that we have a respectful, a courteous tone. You know, a lot of times it's hard to cover up the fact that maybe you don't like him or her, but you got to do that. Don't ever let them feel like you don't like them, because if you do, then we're back to that bullying problem, you know? So you got to be friendly, smile at them. Even though I might not like you, I'm going to smile at you. I'm going to treat you with kindness.
I appreciate that.
We have to do that, even if they don't. Don't let them know. You know, that we have to remind them occasionally that we're board members, we work for them, the owners, okay?
Yeah, but you're in charge.
Yeah, but it's not the other way around. We are there to help them, to work for them, you know, and...
So you make the rules, you punish people, you fine people, and you're saying you work for them?
We do. We work for the owners.
That means when you do those things, you got to keep that in mind.
You do. And you know, one of the worst things you can probably do in a board meeting is argue with somebody. Because you know what happens? Who wins?
Actually, nobody.
Who loses?
Everybody.
Everybody. So that's something you got to stay away from. Another problem I've noticed in meetings is a lot of people like to bring up old past history. Things that happened maybe a year, 2 years ago, maybe 6 months ago.
And they're still upset about it.
They're still upset, but you know what? Don't go there. Don't let them do that because you waste time. That problem's probably been fixed if it's fixable. There's no sense wasting any more time on it. You know, just stick to what's going on in that meeting. You have an agenda. Follow it. It really, really helps, I tell you. You know, even if you disagree, you know, there are times that you can show them that you're empathetic with them. You know, maybe they don't understand the problem. Maybe you understand the problem better. I don't know. But you know, you got to show them that you really do care about their problem.
Yeah, sometimes people are well-meaning people that the rules just happen to cause them difficulty for some particular reason.
And you don't want them to get the idea that you're picking on them,
right?
You know, because a lot of people will, unless you're careful.
Unless you do what they want.
That's right. So, you know, you one time said to me, you had a great idea, a question that sometimes you can ask people when they have problems, and I can't remember what that was exactly. Can you refresh me?
It's kind of simple, actually. You just ask the person, how can we help you solve your problem?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember now.
You know, it puts them, I'm not saying on the defensive, but it puts them in the position of trying to help solve the problem as opposed to just being angry.
Okay. But you know, even with all that being said, homeowners sometimes get so angry, they almost become irrational. I mean, to the point of, wow, that's a little scary.
Which is why we're here today.
Yes, that's it. So, do we remind them that we're adults? We should act like adults?
Well, I think we just need to be the adults in the room if we can.
Be courteous to them?
If you set an example, it might be, it might rub off on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Telling them to acting like a child is probably not the best idea, though.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, but you know.
But if you act like the adult in the room, I think it does set an example for everybody.
Yeah. So, you know, it's hard not to interrupt the speaker. It really is.
It really is.
You've got to really have control of that. You've got to let him, her finish, whatever their problem is, because they want to be heard. I cannot stress that enough. They want to be heard.
They want to be heard.
You know?
But when you talk, when you respond,
yeah, well, it's the same thing.
Do not let this person you're responding to interrupt you.
Just like the rules we talked about before, kind of.
It turns into an argument, and we said before, what happens with arguments is nothing good.
Nothing good. You never get to where you are. So we're right back to the basic fact. We want to stick to what we're talking about, the fact, and not the attitude that's displayed.
Just ignore their attitude.
Ignore it. I know it's a little tough to do, but you can. Okay?
Okay.
So let me ask you. Now, we have tenants and renters in our community, but you know, they don't have rights, do they?
Well, a lot of people think we shouldn't even care about tenants because they're not owners.
I think that's a mistake, don't you?
I think it is because they're part of your community. They live there, and although they don't pay assessments, they pay the rent that pays the assessments.
Oh, yeah.
And they have most of the, surprisingly, a lot of board members don't think this, they have most of the same rights as a homeowner.
They do.
They can't vote, but they can do most of the activities. They can use the common areas generally. They have all the same rights as an owner, generally speaking.
Okay, so again, we're right back to what we talked about previously, that we're trying to come up with some sort of an alternative or compromise to help this settle down a little bit and make the meeting a little easier to conduct and to get some understanding and let them know we're reasonable people.
You're trying to be reasonable.
We're board members, you know, and we got to let them know that. And, you know,
if
hopefully
you try
they're
to be
gonna
reasonable,
follow.
if you show them you're being reasonable, they're much more likely to be reasonable.
That's true. They will. But again, we don't necessarily want to find them, do we?
We would like to not have to find them.
Yeah, we're looking for compliance.
If we determine that they're in violation, right? If they're actually in violation and they refuse to do anything about it, you're kind of left with only one alternative, and that's fining, and hopefully that solves the problem. It may take time.
Kind of a last resort thing to do, I guess, you know. But then, you know, sometimes people just want to be angry. They do. That's the way it is, you know. So, again, we're back to being adults in the room.
Some people just don't, are going to be angry because they're not getting their way.
So
some people are used to getting their way.
Can we appeal to their better side? How do we do that?
We hope so. Well, you talk to them in a sincere and friendly tone, and there's the kind of things you can say are, you know, we're here trying to help you, but we need your help too. So work with us.
Okay.
We're not your enemy. We're homeowners like you. We're volunteering our time to help our community, and we don't get paid for it. We're glad to do it, but we need your help.
You know, that's something I think a lot of homeowners don't understand. We're on the board. I think they think we get paid. It's something to remind them of. Yeah.
I need a raise then.
Yes, you do. So do I.
You can tell them, you know, please treat us like your neighbor. Let us help. We are your neighbor. We've treated you respectfully.
Hopefully,
please respond in kind. You know, please do the same. We can disagree, but there's no reason to be disagreeable.
I agree.
We're neighbors.
I agree to disagree.
And you also can resort to, you know, the bully disruption bills. I think it's if you know you're going to have a meeting that might be disruptive, have that information copied on the, and attached to the agenda. So everybody there knows that this is the law.
Great idea.
And, you know,
yeah.
and that they understand criminal charges can apply.
Sure. Yeah.
And, you know, finally you tell them, you know, if you can't change your attitude and be respectful to your people who are in the room, you will have to leave.
Ooh.
And then, cross your fingers.
And then?
You might get lucky.
And what would happen?
It often works.
Wait.
And they'll calm down. Or they'll leave.
Oh.
Either way, your meeting just got a lot better,
Great.
right?
I feel better already. Yeah, yeah, I do.
Either way.
All right, but okay, so I'll give you that. But what if they don't leave? What if, let's say, what if they're getting a little bit more out of hand and they almost get in your face, but then they back off? I mean, what alternative do we have there?
Well, if it continues to be hostile, intimidating, disruptive, you have to tell them to leave. They have to leave the meeting.
Really?
And if they refuse, you have a couple options. You can recess the meeting for 30 minutes or an hour, or you can reschedule the meeting for another time.
Okay.
And that you hope that when you come back in session that person either doesn't come back or that they've calmed down.
Okay.
The other option is if you in the room feel truly threatened, because there are people who will get right in your face and start doing this to you.
You wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that because you're bigger than I am.
Okay.
But if there are some people who do make people not just uncomfortable, but fearful. When that happens, you can have, I would suggest you ask all of the board members to dial 911 at the same time and report this threatening, fearful behavior. And you'd be surprised. You get a bunch of people calling, expressing the same problem. You can get the Metro to come out and address the problem. Also, it's intimidating the person who now realizes you're willing to do, this is the nuclear option, right?
So you really are serious about what's going on.
You're serious about it, right.
Yeah. Well, I think that about concludes what we want to talk about, how to handle a disruptive member in a meeting. So that's the end of this segment. And we'll be back shortly and we'll give you some other useful resources. So don't go away.